In the town of Cumbra, everyone knew Mama Ebel. She was 73, gentle, and always had a kind word for anyone who passed by her small shop near the market road. Every morning she would sweep her front yard, greet her neighbors, and share roasted ground nuts with the children who called her Grandma Ebel. But one morning, everything changed. When her daughter Ada went to wake her, she found Mama Ebel sitting on the edge of her bed, trembling. Her voice was soft and weak. "My legs, they feel heavy," she said. Ada helped her mother lie down, but her breathing sounded strange, slow, and tired. Panic filled the house. Within the hour, her sons had carried her to the city hospital. The doctors surrounded her, whispering to one another. They ran tests, checked her blood, her lungs, and her heart. More doctors arrived from other towns. Soon there were 20 of them. The hospital smelled of medicine and worry. Each doctor gave a different explanation, but no one had an answer that made sense. Her eldest son, Namdi, asked one of them, "Doctor, what is wrong with her? Please just tell us." The man sighed. "Her body is fine," he said slowly. "Her heart is strong. Her blood is clean. But something unseen is taking her strength." The family was confused. How could someone be sick when every test said she was healthy? They took turns watching her, praying through the night. Each time Mama Ebel opened her eyes, she smiled faintly. "Do not cry for me," she whispered. "I am just tired." Days turned into a week. Her food remained untouched. The bright laughter that once filled her home was gone. The neighbors came by with fruits and soup, but Mama Ebel could hardly lift her head. Ada sat by her bedside, holding her hand tightly. "Mama, please get better," she said through tears. Sometimes, late at night, strange things seemed to happen. The lights would flicker. The room felt heavy and cold. One evening, Ada thought she saw a shadow move across the wall even though no one was there. She closed her eyes, telling herself it was only her imagination. The doctors continued to visit. They brought new machines, new medicines, but nothing changed. Mama Ebel's voice grew faint, like the whisper of a distant song. When the last doctor left that day, he shook his head and said, "We have done everything we can." That evening, the family gathered around her bed. The air was thick with silence. Mama Ebel opened her eyes and looked at them with love. "Do not be afraid," she said softly. "The body grows weak, but kindness never dies." Her words brought tears to everyone's eyes. Still, her children refused to give up. They searched for anyone who could help, even beyond the hospital. But hope was fading fast. Each morning, her face seemed thinner, her skin paler, her once bright smile dimming like the setting sun over Cumbra. The whole town began to whisper about her sickness. Some said it was a curse, others said it was a spirit's anger, and some believed it was simply her time. But no one truly knew. And as the nights grew longer, it seemed even the air in her room carried the weight of mystery, something unseen, something waiting to be discovered. Yet deep within her weak heart, Mama Ebel still carried peace. When her daughter wept beside her bed, she reached out a trembling hand and whispered, "Child, remember this, what the eyes cannot see, the heart sometimes feels." No one understood what she meant then. But soon, those words would lead to a discovery that even 20 doctors had missed. It began quietly, with a poor boy outside the hospital who had nothing but sharp eyes and a gentle heart. Outside the city hospital, life moved on as usual. People came and went, cars honked, and the smell of roasted corn mixed with the dust of the road. Among the crowd was a young boy named Sephu. He was about 12 years old, thin and barefoot, carrying a wooden tray filled with oranges. He spent his days walking between cars, calling out in his small voice, "Sweet oranges. Only 10 naira." Though he was poor, Sephu had something most people didn't notice: a sharp mind and a heart that paid attention to things others ignored. He often sat under the large mango tree beside the hospital gate, watching people go in with fear and come out with tears. Sometimes he would say a small prayer for them, even if he didn't know their names. One evening, as the sun turned red and low in the sky, Sephu noticed a woman standing near the gate. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and her wrapper was loose around her shoulders. It was Ada, Mama Ebel's daughter. She looked lost, as if she had run out of strength. Sephu hesitated for a moment, then walked closer. "Auntie," he said softly, "why do you cry?" Ada wiped her face and forced a small smile. "It's my mother," she said. "She is very sick. The doctors are trying, but nothing is working." Sephu lowered his tray of oranges. "How long has she been sick?" he asked. "For many days," Ada replied. "They have done tests, given medicines, but she only gets weaker." The boy looked toward the tall hospital building. Its white walls glowed faintly in the fading light. "Sometimes," he said slowly, Sickness hides where the eyes don't look. Ada frowned slightly. She didn't understand what he meant. What do you know about sickness, little one? She asked, her voice tired but gentle. Sephew shrugged. Not much, auntie. But my grandmother used to say that not every illness comes from the body. Some come from the things around it. Ada sighed. She wanted to believe there was hope, but she was too exhausted. She handed him a coin for an orange and said, "Thank you, my son. Pray for her." Then she turned and walked back inside the hospital, her shadow stretching long behind her. Sephew stood there for a while, staring after her. Something about her sadness touched him deeply. He felt a strange pull, like his heart was telling him to do something though he didn't know what. That night, after everyone had gone home, Sephew sat under the mango tree again. The hospital lights flickered like fireflies and the air was cool and still. He thought about the old woman he hadn't seen, the one who made her daughter cry like that. He remembered his grandmother's words clearly. There are sicknesses that live in the air and some that live in the heart. But the worst ones live in the things we bring too close. The next morning, Sephew returned to the hospital early. He sold a few oranges, but his eyes kept watching the door where Ada had gone in. When he saw her again, she looked even more tired. He called out softly, "Auntie." She turned, surprised to see him again. "Let me see her," he said. Ada blinked in confusion. "You? A small boy?" Sephew nodded seriously. "Please. Sometimes small eyes see what big eyes miss." Ada wanted to laugh, but something about the boy's calm voice made her pause. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Maybe later." That night, as she sat beside her mother's bed, Ada couldn't stop thinking about the boy's words. She looked around the room, at the medicines, the machines, the flowers from visitors, and for the first time she wondered if something else could be wrong. Meanwhile, Sephew sat under the same mango tree outside, whispering a short prayer to the night sky. He didn't know if it would help, but deep inside he felt a connection, as though his path and the old woman's were tied by something unseen. The next day would bring him closer to that truth. And when he finally stepped inside Mama Ebel's hospital room, what he found would surprise everyone, even the 20 doctors who had failed before. The morning sun rose softly over Cumbra, painting the hospital walls in a golden light. Sephew stood near the gate again, his tray of oranges resting beside him. But today his heart was restless. He couldn't stop thinking about the old woman inside, Mama Ebel, the one the doctors could not heal. He took a deep breath and walked toward the entrance. The guards at the door looked at him with surprise. "Hey, small boy. Where are you going?" one asked. Sephew bowed slightly. "Please, sir. I just want to see the woman in room 12. I think I can help." The guards laughed. "Help? Are you a doctor now?" Sephew shook his head. "No, sir. But I see things differently." Something in his calm voice made the guard hesitate. After a short silence he said, "Be quick. Don't touch anything." Sephew nodded and stepped quietly inside. The hospital hallway smelled of medicine and soap. He walked slowly, looking into each room until he saw her, Mama Ebel. She lay on a white bed, her face pale, her eyes half open. Tubes and wires surrounded her. By her side stood her children, tired and silent. When Sephew reached the doorway, Ada noticed him and gasped. "You again?" she whispered. Sephew nodded respectfully. "Auntie, please. Let me look around. I won't disturb her." The family looked confused but curious. No one else had brought hope in days, and even a child's words felt worth listening to. So Ada nodded slightly and Sephew stepped closer. He stood beside the bed and looked carefully around the room, not at the machines or the medicines but at the corners, the windows and the things hanging near Mama Ebel. His eyes stopped at a small wooden charm above her bed, tied to a nail on the wall. It was shaped like a circle with tiny beads and feathers hanging from it. Sephew's eyes narrowed. "This shouldn't be here," he said quietly. Mama Ebel's son, Chinedu, frowned. "What do you mean, boy? A visitor brought it yesterday. They said it would protect her from evil spirits." Sephew looked at the charm again. "Not every gift brings peace," he said slowly. "Some carry burdens instead." The family exchanged uneasy glances. Ada stepped closer. "It's just a charm. How can that hurt?" Sephew hesitated before replying. "My grandmother used to say, sometimes when the body is weak, even a small thing can hold it down. This charm doesn't bring healing. It traps her breath." Chinedu crossed his arms. "You're just a poor boy selling oranges. What do you know about healing?" Sephew didn't argue. He simply looked back at Mama Ebel. Her breathing was shallow, her lips trembling slightly as if she wanted to speak. Then with surprising strength she whispered, "Take it away." Everyone froze. Ada turned to her mother. "Mama?" Her mother's voice was weak but clear. "Take it down. Please." Without another word, Ada climbed on a chair and carefully removed the charm from the nail. As soon as she held it in her hand, a small wind blew through the open window. The curtains moved softly and the air in the room seemed to shift, lighter, warmer, alive. Sephew stepped back and closed his eyes for a moment, whispering something under his breath. Then a small sound came from the bed. Mama Ebel's eyes opened wider. She took a deeper breath, the first strong one in days. Ada gasped and held her hand. "Mama, can you hear me?" The old woman looked around slowly, her eyes clearer now. "The air," she whispered faintly. "It feels lighter." The family stood frozen in disbelief. Chinedu looked at the charm in his sister's hand and then at the boy. "What did you do?" he asked softly. Sephew smiled faintly. "I only saw what others didn't." For the first time in days the room filled with quiet hope instead of fear. The doctors outside didn't know yet, but inside that small hospital room, something had changed. Sephew bowed his head slightly. "She will rest better now," he said. Ada's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "You've done more than 20 doctors." But Sephew didn't stay to hear praise. He picked up his tray of oranges and walked toward the door. As he left, Mama Ebel looked at him with tired but grateful eyes. "Bless you, my child," she said softly. Sephew smiled and whispered, "It wasn't me, Mama. It was your spirit waiting to breathe free." When he stepped outside, the morning sun touched his face. He felt peace, not because people would thank him but because he had listened to what his heart told him to see. That small act, noticing what others ignored, had brought life back into an old woman's eyes. And though he didn't know it yet, that single moment would make the people of Cumbria tell his story for many years to come. The morning after the charm was removed, something changed in the hospital. The heavy silence that had covered Mama Ebel's room began to fade. The air was no longer thick with worry. Instead, there was a soft calmness, a peace that even the doctors could not understand. When the nurses came to check her pulse, they were shocked. "Her breathing is strong again," one said. "Her heartbeat feels steady." Mama Ebel's eyes fluttered open fully that morning. For the first time in many days, her face held color again. She looked around the room slowly as though seeing it for the first time. Her children, who had grown pale from sleepless nights, leaned closer in joy. "Mama," Ada whispered, tears gathering in her eyes. "You're awake." A weak but real smile spread across the old woman's face. "I am," she said softly. "I feel lighter. Like something heavy has been lifted from me." Chinedu, who had once doubted Sephew's words, now stood silently by the window, staring at the wooden charm resting on the table. It looked harmless, just wood and string. Yet he couldn't shake the thought that perhaps the poor boy had truly seen something no one else could. That afternoon, the doctors came for another checkup. They ran their tests again, checking her heartbeat, her lungs, her blood. After some time, one doctor put down his clipboard and said with confusion, "This doesn't make sense. Her condition is improving rapidly, and we haven't given her any new medicine." The others nodded in disbelief. "Maybe it was a miracle," another said softly. Her children exchanged looks and smiled, their hearts full of relief. Over the next few days, Mama Ebel continued to get stronger. The nurses began removing the tubes one by one. She could now sit up, eat on her own, and even talk for longer periods. Laughter began to return to her hospital room, soft at first, then brighter each day. Outside, Sephew still sold oranges by the gate. He didn't expect to be remembered, but one afternoon, Ada came out to find him. She smiled warmly. "She wants to see you," she said. Sephew blinked in surprise. "Me?" "Yes," Ada said, nodding. "She says she owes her life to you." Sephew followed her through the hospital corridor. When he entered the room, Mama Ebel was sitting upright, her blanket neatly folded around her shoulders. Her eyes were gentle and full of gratitude. She reached out her thin hand toward him. "Ah, my boy," she said with a warm smile. "Come closer." Sephew stepped forward shyly. Her hand was soft and warm in his small palm. "You saw what others missed," she said. "Even the great doctors couldn't find it, but you looked deeper." Sephew shook his head humbly. "I didn't do much, Mama. I only saw something that didn't belong near you." Mama Ebel looked thoughtful. "Sometimes," she said softly, "healing begins not with medicine but with wisdom, and with eyes that look beyond what they are told." Sephew smiled faintly. "Sometimes healing starts when we remove what doesn't belong." Her eyes twinkled at his words. "Yes," she whispered. That is true. The room was silent for a moment, filled with warmth. Ada and Chinedu watched quietly, their hearts full. They had spent money, time, and sleepless nights hoping to save their mother, but in the end, it was a humble boy with oranges and kindness who had brought her back to life. Before Sephu left, Mama Ebel said, "You have a good heart, my child. Never let it grow cold. There are many who see but few who truly look." He nodded gently, his eyes shining. "Thank you, Mama." That night, when Sephu went home to his small wooden hut, he looked at the stars and thought of her smile. He didn't know what power had truly helped her, faith, spirit, or something deeper, but he knew one thing: the world was full of things that people stopped noticing. And maybe, just maybe, if more people learned to look with open hearts, they would find answers hidden in plain sight. Days turned into weeks, and soon Mama Ebel was walking again. The hospital staff could hardly believe it. The woman who had once lain lifeless on a hospital bed now walked through the halls, greeting everyone with a smile. When she was finally discharged, the doctor stood outside to bid her farewell. "We don't understand it," one admitted. "But we're happy you're well." Mama Ebel chuckled softly. "Not everything must be understood," she said kindly. "Some things are meant to be felt." She turned to Sephu, who stood shyly by the gate, holding his basket of oranges. She placed her hand on his head. "May your eyes always stay open, my child," she said. "You have the gift of seeing truth in simple things." Sephu smiled, his heart full. "Thank you, Mama. I'll never forget you." And as she left the hospital, her children walking beside her, they all looked back once more, not at the building, not at the doctors, but at the little boy who had taught them that healing does not always come from power or wealth, but from kindness, courage, and the will to truly see. When Mama Ebel returned home to Cumbra, the whole town rejoiced. The old woman who everyone thought would never rise again was walking, smiling, and laughing with her neighbors. Children ran beside her as she walked through the village square, and the elders came out of their huts to bless her return. News of her recovery spread quickly. People whispered in amazement, 20 doctors tried, but it was a poor boy who saved her. Some did not believe it at first, but when they saw Mama Ebel standing strong and healthy, their doubts faded. That evening, the villagers gathered under the big baobab tree. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of gold and orange. Mama Ebel sat on a wooden stool, her children beside her. Sephu, shy as always, stood a few steps behind, holding his basket of oranges. The village chief spoke first. "Mama Ebel," he said in his deep voice, "we all prayed for your recovery, but we heard that this young boy was the one who helped you. Tell us, how did it happen?" Mama Ebel looked at Sephu with warm eyes. "Ah," she began softly, "sometimes help comes from where you least expect it. The doctors gave me medicine, but this boy saw something they could not. His eyes saw truth, not just sickness." The people turned to Sephu. Some clapped, others smiled in admiration. The little boy blushed, lowering his head. "I only said what I saw," he said humbly. "Eyes that see kindness also see truth." The elders nodded, impressed by his wisdom. One old man said, "That is a truth our people must never forget." As the night grew darker, lanterns were lit, and the air filled with songs of gratitude. Women brought food, children danced, and laughter echoed through the village. But among all the noise, the words of Mama Ebel and Sephu stayed in everyone's heart. In the days that followed, people began to look at life differently. They started listening more to one another. When someone was sick, they didn't only call doctors. They also prayed, shared kindness, and watched carefully for what might be wrong around them. They remembered that healing wasn't only about the body, it was about peace, love, and truth. Mama Ebel grew stronger with each passing week. She often sat outside her home, under a small mango tree, watching the children play. Sephu visited her often. Sometimes they didn't even speak, they just shared quiet smiles, the kind that needed no words. One day she told him, "My son, you have a gift, not just of sight but of heart. Keep using it to help people, no matter how small your way may seem." Sephu nodded, his voice soft. "I will, Mama. You taught me that love listens better than fear." Years passed and people never forgot what had happened. Whenever someone fell ill or felt lost, they would repeat the same words: "Doctors heal the body, but wisdom heals the heart." It became a saying across the region, not written in books but carried in voices, told to children by firesides and remembered by travelers passing through. Sephu grew up and became a kind young man. He never became rich, but everyone in Cumbra came to him for advice. He listened to them with the same quiet patience he had shown that day in the hospital. Mama Ebel lived many more years. Every time someone asked about her recovery, she would smile and say, My strength returned when kindness found me. Healing began the day truth walked into my room. And so, the story of Mama Ebel and the poor boy spread far beyond Cumbria. It was told in markets, schools, and gatherings across the land, a story not of miracles or medicine, but of how one heart filled with kindness can see what others overlook. In time, people added their own ending to the tale. True healing begins when love and truth work together, for the eyes that see with kindness will never miss what truly matters.